Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Dixboro United Methodist Church. We have gathered here this afternoon to remember the life of Frances Ann Dew, to give thanks for that life and to remember the things that she did with it and the way that her life touched ours. We have come here today to remember a long and rich and good life. A friend, a family member, a colleague has died, but we are so much better for her having lived. I want to welcome her family to this service, her children and her grandchild, her sisters and brothers, all the nieces and nephews, this wide extended family that's gathered today. You are supposed to be here for the next hour as we remember Fran together. I want to welcome her colleagues who are here, those of us in ministry. Some of us were in seminary with her together. Some of us served in churches near her. Welcome to you all. And to all the friends, it doesn't matter how you knew Fran, your being here honors her life, and this is your chance to remember her well and to say farewell. So welcome to this service of remembrance and celebration for Fran Dew. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister, as was Fran, and in our tradition, the flaming chalice is the most central symbol we have. And we have it right here. We light it at each of our services. We light it at weddings and at child dedications. So, of course, we light it at funerals and memorial services. And we'll go ahead and light the chalice this afternoon. It, for us, is the flame of truth and knowledge. It is a beacon of hope. It is the symbol of joy and of peace and of all good things in this world. And that match broke in two. We light the chalice this afternoon with these words by the poet Mary Oliver. She says, "To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go." Let us worship together. Standing here in this church doing this service. Fran was taking no chances with her own memorial service. She asked me about 30 years ago if I would do it, and of course, I was much younger and much more naive then, and I said, of course I would. Little did I know that she would remind me on every occasion when we were together. Now, you remember you're supposed to do my service, don't you? And I would say, yes, Fran, I remember. May it be a long, long time from now. On the occasion of my ordination 25 years ago, she wrote me this note, and it just touches on everything that was Fran. She says, from Peer Rag, that was a student group, to CPE, that was the chaplaincy we did together, to the MFC, that was the credentialing body, and now ordination. You are always here for me. Our lives in ministry are yoked to the end of my days. Love, Fran. She would also remind me that there was a particular poem that she wanted read at this service. It's Joyce Sutphen's poem, Girl on a Tractor. I knew the names of all the cows before I knew my alphabet, but no matter the subject, I had mastery of it, and when it came time to help in the fields, I learned to drive a tractor at just the right speed so that two men, walking on either side of the moving wagon, could each lift a bale, walk toward the steadily arriving platform, and simultaneously hoist the hay onto the rack, walk back to the next bale, lift, turn, and find me there, exactly where I should be, my hand on the throttle, carefully measuring out the pace. I'd like to invite Pastor Mary, the pastor of this church, to come and offer a prayer.
Let us bow our heads and open our hearts to God in prayer. Holy One, on this day of remembrance, we say aloud her name, Frances Ann Dew. Died, the word is jarring, so jarring that we hardly use the word, substituting euphemisms that are a bit more vague. Sometimes people say lost when what they mean is dead. We lost so-and-so this year, but people who die are not lost. They are not misplaced. We did not just lose sight of them, nor did they wander off. They died, and it is as final as the word sounds. But that is, of course, why we don't say they died. When people die, they do not just disappear and we continue on. There is no such thing as out of sight, out of mind. There is no switch to flip to turn off our feelings. The people may not be lost, but we are at a loss for words, for normalcy, for what was and what could have been. And grief is such an unwieldy thing. We are fine 1 minute, years even, and then the deep sadness comes, seemingly out of nowhere. That's the thing about people who are loved. Their memories keep. They're never too far away. They come to us in song lyrics, or a line of a movie dialogue, or on a long walk. What was it that they always said? Oh, that's right. And they always did have a certain way. So maybe we'll do it that way and laugh a little in memory of them. So be with us, Holy One, as we grieve over the empty chair at the table. We'll light a candle and say an extra prayer, and we trust with sure certain hope that you had Fran before we let her go. Amen.
I'd like to invite Paul to come up and offer a couple of poems.
First of all, I'm so grateful that you're all here. Thank you for coming to celebrate Mom. It means so much. I'm going to share 2 poems from Mom's favorite poet, Mary Oliver. They're special to me because I read the whole book to her late in life, and then read them again to her frequently in the last 3 days of her life when it was just the 2 of us. Before that, I'd like to talk about a few things about Mom. First, her resiliency. We all face struggle and hardship and soldier on in life. Looking back, I know it was really tough on Mom to uproot from Michigan and move to Yakima when she so deeply loved her family. Soon after, Dad got cancer and was diagnosed with 6 months to live, and miraculously pulled through. This greatly impacted his medical practice, making everything even more challenging. And shortly after, our house was badly burned, and we had to move out for a year for it to be repaired. Throughout all of this, I remember early childhood as fun, exciting, a joyful time, and how she managed to pull that off in the face of these struggles is a testament to her resiliency. She was also amazing at Christmas. She truly made it magical. We made handmade gifts for the family until the production got so big it became like an actual Santa's workshop, and we had to scale back. Her ability to face what was thrown at her and find her way through is something I will always love and respect about her. One last thing I will share is something I remembered recently, out of the blue, while drifting through my memories of Mom. For those of you who watched TV in the 70s, you may remember a detergent commercial which contained "ring around the collar, ring around the collar." For those of you who don't, I'll try and describe it a little bit to you. It was a 60s housewife packing her husband's white shirts into a suitcase, and the suitcase springs open and these children's voices mock, "Ring around the collar, ring around the collar." And she looks kind of alarmed at the shirts, and an announcer says, "Oh, those dirty rings. You try washing them, scrubbing them," in this case with a toothbrush. And still, ring around the collar, ring around the collar. At which point, Mom looked up from whatever she was doing, and she said to the TV, "Why don't you just tell your husband to wash his neck?" And that was Mom. Okay. So this was her favorite Mary Oliver poem. And it was called "The World I Live In." I have refused to live locked in the orderly house of reasons and proofs. The world I live in and I believe in is wider than that. And anyway, what's wrong with maybe? You wouldn't believe what once or twice I have seen. I'll just tell you this. Only if there are angels in your head will you ever possibly see one. And the second one is called "Everything That Was Broken." Everything that was broken has forgotten its brokenness. I live now in a sky house. Through every window the sun. Also your presence. Our touching, our stories, earthy and holy both. How can this be? But it is. Every day has something in it whose name is forever.
Next, we'll hear from Isadora, who is Fran's granddaughter. Come on up.
Sweet and spicy gingerbread cookies and cold milk early on a summer morning. Long afternoons spent in the parlor with the clatter of Scrabble tiles and rumble of the lazy Susan. The feeling of pie dough between my fingers and firmness and warmth of freshly picked blackberries. These are just a few of the many wonderful memories Fran gave to me, and I will forever be grateful. Today I stand before you to express what is ineffable. Just how meaningful my connection with my grandmother was to me. I'm immensely fortunate to be one of the many benefactors of Fran's love, spirit, and care, which she brought in abundance to every moment and shines in every memory. Thank you, Fran.
And now Chuck, her brother.
I'm honored to speak on behalf of Fran's 8 younger siblings. Fran's move to the farm with Aunt Ida and Leola was more than a return to her first real home. Here she took up the mantle of matriarch in our family. It was a role she was particularly suited to. It was, in fact, inevitable. As the eldest of us, she had the respect, the experience, dare I say, the fear of her 8 siblings. I use the word fear here in a theological sense, not a phobia or a dread, but still a kind of awe with a hint of caution. Fran grew up a farm girl in every sense. She was competent, industrious, daring, and yes, she could be intimidating. The enforcer, the foreman, the police. As Clarence and Leola's family grew, Fran's responsibilities increased. She could drive a tractor and tow a wagon long before the pickup, behind the pickup, long before she had a driver's license. She taught her farming siblings how to work. Because she was competent and trusted to be around during their chores, Dad was free to get about other tasks. Fran was shaped by the farm. She kept rambunctious athletic brothers in line at the school bus stop. Later, and rather forcefully, she applied her early nurse's training to fraternal adolescent hygiene. I've promised not to get too specific on this point, but it bears mentioning. After the family left farming, Fran's life moved gradually into city-adjacent experience. Moving to DeWitt with a driver's license, permission, and chores to leave the house for, she explored Lansing, driving there for cheaper groceries, but maybe more importantly, for the state library. And of course, shopping for 11, she needed help, so Bonnie got to tag along, enjoy a moment of freedom, just a moment of freedom, and an up-close look at the sheer volume of reading Fran finished each week. Like our parents, Fran was a voracious reader. She set a pace which all of us siblings aspire to, but rarely match. Fran called herself a serial reader. That's serial with an S, not a C. But I'm sure like most of us, if it came to it and nothing else was at hand, she did read the cereal boxes too. If a tax bill was open on your table, she read it. Ridiculous billboards garnered an "oh my word," or outright laughter. Like our ancestors, she treasured and used books well. How hard it was for Fran, and for those of us who loved her, when near the end she found that she was not able to focus and read. But just imagine how rich her interior life must have been, with so many words, pictures, stories, and ideas in her head and heart. You may smile at the notion that Fran settled in a big city when she married Bob and kept a home in Kalamazoo. She had, after all, been to New York City in high school. But in Kalamazoo, we saw her in an urbane setting. Her life became what it might have been if Mom and Dad had not left Dearborn for the farm. The twins lived with the Dews while attending Western Michigan and saw a vibrant family life up close. The little kids in our family had many a visit at the house on West Ninja Avenue, with and without our parents. There was always a delight in playing with Jenny and Paul, and what a treat it was to become aunts and uncles at such a young age. But we were also introduced to culture beyond Bronson, if you can imagine such a thing. The Art Institute game, the records, soundtracks as varied as The Jungle Book and Hair, the exotic foods, tacos, and Hellmann's mayonnaise, not Miracle Whip. Hellmann's mayonnaise blended with mustard. When the Jews moved west, Fran made sure there was no distance in relationships. As many of us as could found our way to Washington, camping, hunting and losing dogs, and off-roading with Fran as occasion presented. Does anyone know really how many cross-country trips she made? Whether with all 4 Jews or just the kids, or even by herself, especially by herself. Each trip was important for connecting with family, as many as possible on any given trip. Because of those trips, we all had the pleasure of seeing Fran connect with our children. She valued being an auntie, and she was great at it. Who among her nieces and nephews don't assume when they think about Fran that surely they were her favorite? Her peripatetic ministry life eventually brought Fran back to the farm, and there we all knew when and how we could get time with her. Whether the annual cleanup day or a grand Thanksgiving, passing through town or needing a place to sleep near Ann Arbor, Fran became the touchstone that drew our family to a familiar place. Back in the heartland, she was the heart of our clan, connecting over family memories, travel, music, and deep conversations about everything from church to mental health to disappointments in life to murder mysteries. At the farm, all her rural and urban experience came into play. She was unflappable, as for example, when a bat interrupted a Scrabble game in the parlor. She was artistic, bringing color and design to play in the family farmhouse while retaining the memory of our grandparents. She was creative. Shop at home first was the slogan, but she had an eye for bringing the rare and unusual find back home as well. You already know that behind all this there are stories, lots of stories. I knew there wouldn't be time to tell the stories or even tell a single story well. There's time for that after the service. And we know you will all have your stories to share with each other and with us. So while most of these descriptions of Fran came to me with at least one story, I want to leave you with the words that summarize them. To us, her siblings, Fran was adventurous, creative, cultured, devoted to family, hardworking, a voracious and serial reader, thoughtful and intelligent, unflappable, and I haven't even mentioned the dogs.
Thank you, Chuck. I think it's good to sing at memorial services. Can you find one of those red hymnals somewhere near you? The good Methodist hymnal right here. Can't do any better than that. Turn to number 707, and we're going to stand and sing together. And Chuck, you're going to lead us? All right, so get ready, stand as you're able. We'll sing number 707.
Thrift store shopping, not just for the hunt, but also because it was environmentally friendly. She gave very generously of her time and her money in support of her community. She demonstrated that what's important in life is not what you have, but what you do. And she was passionate about social justice. She instilled in me the understanding that we are one race, all members deserving of respect and dignity. As you heard, she was a voracious reader. And two of my favorite stories about her involve books. One is told by neighbor Don Stabler about when Fran was younger. She was holding a book in one hand, reading at the bottom of the stairs, and then she caught a falling brother in the other hand. Another is told by Bonnie, Robert's sister, and Chuck described it, and it was the fact that the very first thing she did when she got her driver's license was to leave that little town of DeWitt and go to the state library and fill a grocery bag full of books, read them in a week, and go back again. And just like my great aunt Ida, she gave books as gifts. And I was the lucky recipient of many autobiographies written by women who had overcome obstacles to pursue their dreams, like Charlene Hunter Galt, treasured collections of poetry like one by Nikki Giovanni, and once a
cautious tale about drug use left under my pillow. She read many books for pleasure and selected others for knowledge to gain inspiration and for compassion. And as you've heard, she was very devoted to her friends and family. When I was little, the twins lived with us, and the little kids, Chuck, Dorothy, and Bill would come on the weekends, and I remember them playing Monopoly into the wee hours. There were Christmas Eves with my sisters, Christmas Day with my grandparents, Freeman Farm picnics, and also many visits from my Aunt Judy, my mom's best friend from nursing school. I doubt my mom ever thought she would move 2,000 miles away to Washington State with my dad, but when she did just that, she did stay connected. And we took the train back across the country for Uncle Bill's graduation. My great aunts came to my high school graduation, and we made trips to Boston and Minnesota to see my sisters, and then many King reunions, and she just wanted to make sure that she could stay in touch with her family in person. And as Chuck said, later in life, when Leola King needed her help, she moved home by taking an associate minister position here in Ann Arbor. It was very hard to move her away from that home that she had returned to after her stroke to California. But I am so grateful for the time I had with her there. And by assisting her as best as possible to live as fully as possible these past 4 years with her disabilities, I came to know just how much she has shaped me. There's a poem by Nikki Giovanni in this book that she gave me long ago that resonates with me. It's called Because, and it reads, I wrote a poem for you because you are my little boy. I wrote a poem for you because you are my darling daughter. And in this poem I sing a song that says, as time goes on, I am you, and you are me, and that's how life goes on. I love her, I miss her, she's part of me, tucked her away in my heart forever, and now she's home again.
Thank you, Jenny. I now realize that I neglected to get into my hands this tribute. Do we have it? Is there a copy of it? The next thing, the tribute by Elaine Festival. I'll read it off a cell phone, I'm not proud. A tribute by Alain Fastre. The gift of watercolor painting with instructor Alain Fastre. During Fran's last 3 years, Alain Fastre taught Fran watercolor painting weekly. At this time, when few people were able to communicate with Fran due to her aphasia, Alain bridged the communication gap. He saw the sparkle in Fran's eyes and enabled her to master something new. He described their sessions as filled with creative, fun, smiling moments. When Fran's daughter, Jennifer, asked Alain for the gift that he gave Fran by teaching her to paint, his response was, I feel deeply that she has given me at least as much happiness by showing me her pride in having done much masterworks. And when I said, I think that this is another masterpiece, don't you think? Her eyes illuminated and she responded with a very cute and charming, yes, ma'am. The experience of working with her was priceless. Watercolor painting allowed Fran to shine. At Alain's suggestion, Fran held an art exhibition of her work on March 2nd, 2024. Now her work hangs in the parlor at the farmhouse. Fran lives on not only in our memories, but also in her paintings. Marian, come on up.
I'm Marion Weisel, one of Fran's many friends and colleagues. I'm so grateful that Fran's life and mine intersected in 1995 when we, along with Howard, arrived at Starr King School for the Ministry in Berkeley, California. A 30-year friendship quickly ensued. During the first week of school, members of our class met one evening. At one point, Fran and I exchanged a look, and perhaps subtly raised eyebrows. You may remember that look. Without saying a word, we knew we felt the same way about how this meeting was going. Yeah, that. I could see that Fran listened with all of her senses. It made her insightful, compassionate, and very good at reading people. I was thrilled that for the next 2 years, Fran, fellow student Amy Friedman, and I shared an apartment in Oakland. So much talk, so much laughter shared. I'll always be grateful for Fran and Amy's encouragement of my dormant creativity. And Fran helped cultivate my appreciation for modern art, something that had been lacking, and for art making. With our mutual support of one another, Fran, Amy, and I were great party planners. We were really the best party planning team I have ever known. We were all from the northern climes and missed snow, at least in the abstract. We were a bit shocked at Berkeley winters. Sharing the love of a good concept, we held a let's pretend it really is winter party. Fran suggested we start at the Berkeley ice skating rink, and then the party moved to our apartment, decorated with winter sports equipment. We worked hard at seminary, but we had a lot of fun too. Fran was an imaginative thinker in all ways, rolling over a problem or a dream until the way forward became clear. I remember the day we met at Starr King for a walk up to the Berkeley Rose Garden. Fran excitedly shared with me that she had decided that her career would be an intentional interim ministry. Our denomination at the time mostly used retired ministers as placeholders during the important in-between period after a settled minister leaves a congregation and the next, hopefully long-term minister arrived. Fran was well suited to interim ministry. By spending a year or two with 8 different congregations, Fran helped guide them through an intentional transition. Fran was able to step back and see the big picture, and always she looked for ways that she might contribute to something that she valued. She eventually helped develop a curriculum for and trained new interim ministers. She wrote an essay for the book, In the Interim. It's still an indispensable resource for our congregations. But mostly, I remember Fran as a faithful friend. When my life was busy and at times a bit overwhelming, Fran continued to reach out, to make that connection. That was so important to her. Each time we would talk or visit, we just picked up from where we left off, talking about a wide, and I mean wide, variety of topics, and always there was laughter. We loved traveling and would rendezvous most years, but I particularly enjoyed visiting Fran at the farm. There I saw where her neighborliness and practical side came from. Later, we helped one another get through the pandemic. We went to church most Sundays via Zoom, and we'd FaceTime afterwards to compare notes on the service, occasionally sharing a look and a raised eyebrow. You know what I mean. And Winnie Ganshaw, a Star King grad and friend, joined Fran and I for a monthly Artists Way group on Zoom. We'd each share our latest creative pursuit, and I was just awed and marveled at Fran's watercolors. Her paintings of birds and flowers are an expression of her love and really of her devotion to nature. I'm so grateful for Fran's friendship and for all of our shared stories, bringing them together here today, making Fran whole to us again, today and always.
As a gathered congregation, I invite us to sit in silence for a few moments to honor the life of Fran Du, and then I'll lead us in prayer. Spirit of life, God of many names and many peoples, we have gathered this afternoon to give thanks for the life of Fran Du. We have gathered as her family and her friends and her colleagues and her neighbors. We've gathered in this beautiful church, so central to Fran's life and to the family. We've gathered here to hear stories about one we loved, to hear just a little bit about how the family loved her, or how the colleagues loved her, or how the friends loved her. Because we each loved her in a different way, and she loved us back. Fran's life was a remarkable one in that she did the things that she wanted to do, and she stayed connected throughout all of that doing with those that she loved. A woman with an imagination and an appetite for books, an appetite for travel, and someone who was also caring and devoted at the same time, devoted to her family, both the older folks and those younger, devoted to her friends, willing to take on challenges at times in her life, going off to seminary and starting a new career, being active in the churches wherever she was. We are grateful for this life, and we're grateful for the way that it touched ours. Each of us is richer for having known Fran Du. Each of us can stand a little bit taller, be a little more courageous, be a little more bold, and yes, at times, be a little more brash. Because she stood tall. She lived her life. Be with us in our grief. Be with us as we miss Fran, because each of us will. And remind us once again that it really does matter what we do with our lives, that it matters how generous we are and how kind. It matters that we really see other people and try to understand their situation rather than trying to make them like us. Our work matters. What we do with our hands and what we do with our minds makes this world a better place. What we do with our lives really does matter, because at the end of it, there's a group of people that are going to gather in a church like this or in a cemetery, and they're going to tell stories about our lives. They're going to laugh at some of the things we did. They're going to cry a little bit, but mostly They're going to be thankful that we lived and that our lives intersected with theirs. Remind us this always. Forgive us the times when we are too timid. Forgive us the times when we fail to connect when we might. Teach us once again, in our own way, to go through life as Fran did, amazed at everything that comes her way, able to try new things, eager to stay in touch with people, and even at the end, to have a glorious last chapter, a time in which she did not die but lived on in a different way. This, my friends, is living. This, O God, is what we want. May we have this and be satisfied. Amen. We have music again here in a moment. But first, I'd like to invite all of you to the reception. There's details about coming over to the farm for the reception. There's the address there. Most of you have been there. Please do come over. There's a nice tent set up, and we'll stay mostly dry. There'll be a chance to tell some more stories about Fran's life then. So please do join us at the reception. And I also want to just thank Jason Gong and Barbara Hinson for being here. Jason, thank you so much for the lovely music, and Barbara for interpreting. Let us have the closing song. You take it away. To live our lives, to live them in a way that Fran would approve of them, knowing that She had very certain opinions about how life should be lived, and that we should do it in our own way. But boy, should we do it. Go in peace, go in love.